Covenant Baptist Church teaches that the call to discipleship is really a call to true salvation. Being a disciple of Jesus is the exact same thing as being a real Christian. And then they have this member named Steve who has dived into a study on salvation, rewards, and discipleship for the past 2 years. And Steve now believes that simply being a justified believer is a completely different thing from being a disciple of Christ. Sure, Steve has tried to express his newfound biblical truth to his church, but they don't want to have anything to do with it. They preach Steve's view is away from the historical understanding of the Reformation and the Reformers' interpretations. Therefore, Steve must be wrong. I think we should expect this kind of treatment today, and if you experience it, don't be too surprised. So, is there a difference between a simple justified believer and a disciple of Jesus Christ? I'll try to give both sides of the story. Lordship Salvation says that every true believer is a true disciple of Christ. There is no difference between a disciple and a Christian. Free Grace, on the other hand, says every believer should be a disciple of Christ, but justification does not depend on being a faithful disciple before, at, or after one's moment of justification takes place. Now, which view is right? Well, let's see what Scripture has to say. Probably the most common verse where people try to attempt to prove that Christians are the same thing as disciples is Acts 11 verse 26, which says in the latter half of the verse, "And it was in Antioch that the disciples were first called Christians." Lordship says that this proves that a disciple and a Christian are the same thing. They are not a separate category of groups according to Lordship Salvation. They really don't give much explanation or interpretation of this phrase or verse though. They just state their claim because it appears to be the plain sense to them. First things first, Acts isn't an epistle that's trying to teach theology. Way too many people tend to forget that. What I'm saying is you can't build your theology off the book of Acts. Luke is just recording what happened in history, not trying to make a theological statement about believers and disciples. It's just a simple statement. And look at the rest of verse 26 and the surrounding context. You see faithful Christians who are giving their all to serve Christ. That is why they were called disciples here. Nothing more should be read into the text. Moving to the Great Commission passages. Matthew 28:18-20, Luke 24:45-49, John 20:21-23, Acts 1:8, and I guess you should include Mark 16 verses 15-18. Though there is great debate as to whether or not the Mark passage is a part of the canon or not. My opinion is that the ending of Mark should not be included, but save your debates for the comments. Most of these passages, if not all, are about making disciples. None of them are trying to explain what it takes to be justified except for maybe Mark, but it already is in question anyway. Nowhere do these verses prove a Christian is always a disciple and vice versa. These verses are not trying to prove a disciple is the same thing as a Christian. Moving to Acts 2 verses 42-44. There is nothing stated here that says a disciple is a believer and vice versa. Anyone who says that there is trying to read their theology into the text. Acts 6 verses 1-7. Yet again, there is no statement or proof that disciples are the same thing as believers. Trying to do so here seems crazy. Acts 14 verses 19-22. These verses indicate that disciples are made after the good news is preached. Moving to Acts 15 verses 9-11. I'm including this verse and some other odd ones because the Lordship community cites them to try to prove their point. This verse seems to argue for free grace theology when all is said and done. If anything, Acts 11 verse 29 would indicate that disciples are not believers if I use the same interpretation and hermeneutics as Lordship, but I'm not trying to overdo it here. The believers in Antioch were surely acting as disciples though. Luke 14 verses 25-35 supports my view as well. It shows discipleship is quite costly. One more passage to discuss, and I really like this one. In John 8, Jesus explains that he is the light of the world, and he is trying to prove to the people that he is the long-awaited Messiah who revealed knowledge of God the Father. He goes on to explain from verses 21-29 that not believing in him would result in everlasting death and separation from God. And my point here comes out in verse 30-32, which states, "As he spoke these things, many came to believe in him. So Jesus was saying to those Jews who had believed in him, 'If you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free.'" Can't you see this? Some of the Jews had already believed and escaped everlasting separation from God. Now that they had gained a right standing with God, Jesus instructed them to become committed disciples of him after they were already justified. Today we should do the same. Jesus' final point was this: the better you become at being a disciple of Christ will directly result with you having more freedom from the curse of sin in this life. Not to mention, all of the major lexicons simply define a disciple as a pupil, follower, learner, or apprentice. In fact, of the 267 New Testament uses of disciple, there are no occurrences in the epistles. While this is an argument about silence, it is odd that if discipleship is such a big part of the gospel, it would seem odd that Paul would never mention it in his justification passages in Galatians and Romans. Now take some time to compare this chart for just a second. This chart is taken from Charlie Bing's article, Why Lordship Misses the Mark for Salvation, in the Journal of the Grace Evangelical Society. Bing is awesome, by the way, and you should definitely check out his other books and his website. Please pause the video here as needed. After you have checked out that chart, I want you to post below whether or not you think this quote from Packer is correct. J.I. Packer and John MacArthur would say things like this: "In our presentation of Christ's gospel, therefore, we need to lay a similar stress on the cost of following Christ and making sinners face soberly before we urge them to respond to the message of free forgiveness. In common honesty, we must not conceal the fact that free forgiveness, in one sense, will cost us everything." I close with this. Number 1, all believers are justified. Number 2, not all believers are disciples. Number 3, not all disciples are believers. Myself and the rest of the Free Grace community deeply hope and urge all believers to be disciples. Listen to this closely. Making Christians to be disciples is mandatory for all disciples of Jesus Christ. Have a great day, and remember that those who serve others will be greatest in the kingdom. Take time to serve Christ somehow today. Like and subscribe for more animated Bible and theology. Have a great day.